Hi everybody, welcome to Rush Reality. My name is Sam, thank you so much for joining me, and what an exciting time to be talking about VR. Because after years out of the spotlight, Google and Samsung are getting back into the game. They're doing it through the announcement of a new headset called Project Moohan. But that's not the interesting bit. This is going to be powered by Android XR, Google's new operating system built for extended reality, which puts AI front and center. This could be the beginning of a whole new era for VR. But why now? Why did they leave the space in the first place, and how did this set the stage for the future? Let's jump in. Now, to understand why this partnership is a big deal, we need to look back at the history of these companies in VR because they have been pivotal. Now, Google first joined the space with the announcement of Google Glass back in 2012. These futuristic glasses that blended digital overlays with the real world. That looks really cool, but it was a bit too much for consumers, and it is now viewed as one of the biggest failures in tech history. With privacy concerns, limited functionality, and a high price tag, people just weren't ready for it. But a couple of years later, they would be announcing Google Cardboard. This was the opposite approach, a really cheap, affordable way for people to get into VR using their mobile phone. For many people in my generation, this was the first experience of modern virtual reality. Now, it wasn't quite up to the standards of what we know today. In fact, it was quite far short of it, but it's the first sight we got of it, and it really dialed people's focus in on VR. And then Samsung, they first got into the game when Oculus were building the Rift. They reached out to Samsung to utilize their OLED panels for the headset, and Samsung said, okay, but if you team up with us to create a mobile phone version. That was the launch of Samsung Gear VR. Similar thinking to Google Cardboard, but with much more advanced tech. They then went on to release some more headsets such as the Samsung Odyssey HMD, but after a few years they'd struggled to get much traction in the market and they would step back and stop making any more releases. Since then, both companies have been quiet. We've seen the odd little drop of software, but nothing that really changes the game. So why now? Well, the answer lies in a combination of timing, tech, and market potential. I think our current place in the VR market is really well illustrated by a model known as the Gartner Hype Cycle. This was created by Jackie Fenn back in 1995, and it shows the way that tech tends to be adopted. It always seems to follow a very similar curve. First, you start off with the technology trigger. This is when the new tech is first launched or announced. For VR, think the launch of the Oculus Rift. This ignites a certain interest in the market, and you see a sudden demand as people's expectations quickly grow for what the tech can deliver. But as this interest and visibility of this tech grows, you hit a bubble burst. We call this the peak of inflated expectations. That's when expectations hit a bit of a reality check and things suddenly start to slow down. People move away from the space and money starts to drain. Think Samsung and Google stepping away from the game because the sales just weren't coming in. You then see a real drop off in visibility as times get tough. Then it hits rock bottom. You see companies collapsing, consumers completely moving away. That is known as the trough of disillusionment. For VR, I'd say that was around 2021 when things felt like they started to actually move backwards. Games and tech felt like they were of a lower standard because people just weren't investing. Then things slowly start to improve as people realize that maybe there is a bit of a long-term opportunity here. That is what's known as the slope of enlightenment. That is where things grow, but in a slow and steady, scalable way that is much more reliable. And I think that is where we are now, and why it's a great time for Google and Samsung to step back in and take things a bit more seriously. Enter Project Moohan. Samsung creating a top-tier VR headset built on software developed by Google. Well, what do we know about this headset? Well, it looks like it's going to be taking learnings from both Meta and Apple. It's going to utilize pancake lenses, so it should have a nice small form factor with some really crisp visuals. It's going to have an external battery, just like you've seen on the Apple headset. That should mean it's quite comfortable to wear, but it does mean you've got to accept that carrying of that battery whenever you're using it. It's going to run on the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2. That's the same chip that powers the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S. So we know the kind of performance we can expect there. Visually, it looks like a cross between the Quest 3 and the Apple Vision Pro. If you threw those descriptions into an AI image generator, I think it would kick out something very similar to what is being showcased here. Like the Apple Vision Pro, it will utilise eye tracking for foveated rendering and UI navigation. That is a real advantage over the Quest. We know the device will get controllers, but we haven't yet seen what they look like or what is involved. I'm personally glad that they are coming with controllers and they haven't chosen to follow suit with Apple. I think that's the right decision. And it will support the Google Play Store for easy access to apps and games. But the most interesting thing about this headset is that it's going to be running on Google XR. So Google have developed a new operating system for XR. Now when I say XR, if you don't know what I mean extended reality. That includes augmented reality, virtual reality and mixed reality. Here Google will be trying to do with XR what they've done with the smartphone market and build the technology that other companies will utilize when they come to build their own devices. The biggest feature for that operating system will be Gemini AI. Gemini AI is Google's next generation AI assistant. It is multimodal, which means it can interpret and respond to video, text and images simultaneously. This dovetails perfectly with the camera sensors on VR and AR headsets, meaning they can constantly get data from the world around you. Over the last couple of weeks I've been playing with the new multimodal version of ChatGPT, particularly in the advanced voice mode, and I've been absolutely blown away at how good it is. It understands exactly what's going on, it can see you, it can describe what's going on, and it just is so much more useful. It really is a massive step forwards. And as always, this is just the start and it's only going to get better. Now we know that they're in constant competition with companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, Meta, to try and be the most engaging AI platform, the platform that we go to whenever we need a solution. Now Google already have our undivided attention when it comes to search. I'm sure all of you have at some point dealt with an AI summary at the top of a search request, but they're also putting Gemini into all of their apps, so we're talking Google Docs, Sheets, Slides, Gmail, the kind of apps that many of us use all the time. And then if it's always there when you're in VR and AR experiences, it could really be quite a compelling proposition. Say you're a ChatGPT user, I am. Are you going to go that far out of your way to use your preferred model when there is a perfectly competent AI LLM just sat there ready and waiting in whatever application you're in at the time? I think for most situations, people would just use what is there. Of course, the question on most people's minds is, can Project Moohan actually compete with Meta and Apple? It's already a really hard space to get into, and many people have fallen short. One of the biggest challenges with VR has always been the interface. How's the best way to interact with the world around you? We've seen controllers, we've seen eye tracking, we've seen hand tracking, we've seen gloves that track the way your fingers move. But AI fits perfectly with this. Why worry about building the perfect interface when you can just offload most tasks to an AI with a simple spoken instruction? While Project Moohan is a VR device, its capabilities hint at a bigger ambition: AR. And that is where Google put their focus in their recent announcements. Google showcased this ideal future, and it was very reminiscent of the kind of things that Meta have showed us the future could one day look like. Live translation, giving you the ability to converse with anyone from any part of the world without any sort of awkward interaction in the middle. Adaptive maps, helping you find your way around the world. Commentary for the world around you, helping you know just a little bit more about any situation you're stepping into. There is so much potential, and if it all does come to pass, it will feel like a superpower, having all this tech to hand at all times. That being said, it's not going to be an easy road, and content is always king, and I am very worried that they have immediately dropped the ball here. One thing these big companies continually seem to miss is gaming. I just don't understand it. They've got a captive market and they seem to just leave it wanting. The games that we know are coming to the Google Play Store for this headset so far include Demio, Job Simulator, Inside Job, and then Virtual Desktop to be able to connect to your PC. Now that isn't exciting. These are games that we've seen already and have been around for some time. Now we haven't had the full announcement yet, and I'm sure we'll hear more in 2025, but if they're going to win over customers, they really need some compelling exclusives. Apple dropped the ball on this when they announced their headset, and I think it's one of the biggest reasons that they've struggled to shift it off the shelves. Meta tried to take a sidestep from gaming when they announced the Quest Pro, and it soon bit them on the arse. These companies continuously seem to push these futuristic devices and just sideline gaming. These are the people that have already committed to this space. Everyone else has to be fought to be won over, and we know that that is a tough battle. Why not please the people who are ready and waiting, and then try and bring on anybody else to support that model? So what's next for this collaboration? Well, an official launch isn't expected until 2025, But with excitement building, I think it could be a very good year. We've also got Valve potentially releasing Project Moohan. We could see a more affordable version of the Apple Reality Pro, and with Google XR, things could really turn a corner. I'll be here to keep you updated all the way. If you've enjoyed this video, a like would be appreciated and a sub to the channel would be amazing. Love to see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.